This is the wireless way, where mobility, IoT, and innovation drive real business outcomes. Welcome to another episode of The Wireless Way. I'm your host, Chris Whitaker. And as always, I'm grateful you're here. I know how busy life can be. So the fact you're checking out this episode really means a lot to me. So I'm also grateful for my guest, Michael Kaloussian, is with us today. Before I bring him on, as usual, just a little bit about him. 20 years experience in the telecom and IoT space, which is why he's on the wireless way today, specializing in mobile workforce and communications technology, advanced telematics, which is fleet, asset, even trailer, ELD, video telematics, and mobile communication services for corporate and enterprise clientele, seasoned sales and tech professional with a passion for technology and people. And today he's coming to join us as the director of business development at Astreon, a North American telematics and IoT software provider that helps value-added resellers and partners grow recurring revenue with advanced fleet, asset, and mobile workforce solutions. In his role, Michael drives strategic partnerships, expands market opportunities, and champions innovative IoT solutions that help businesses improve operational visibility and performance. And of course, my other two words I love to throw in there is efficiency and effectiveness. So, we had a great pre-show conversation, Michael. Thanks for being here. I mean, I can't wait to unpack this topic.
Thanks for having me, Chris. It's really a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to sharing some thoughts, some ideas, and answer some questions for the viewers.
Excellent. Fantastic. Well, as always, we aim to motivate, educate, and inspire. And I hope to do some of that here, even with the first question I want to ask you. I always love to ask my guests, what's not in the bio? Tell us a little bit more about how did you get here?
Okay, well, I like to kind of go back where my passion started in tech and software, and it was really in my childhood. In our household, my father was in software development, so we'd always have the latest gadget and tech at home, like the new Pentium computer and all that. I grew up on MS-DOS, and it kind of really nurtured that interest. So when I went into the workforce, it really drove me into anything that was tech sales or tech related, which got me started in telecom, actually. So you kind of touch on some of the points in IoT. I call that second phase, and probably like a lot of the listeners, maybe yourself as well, I started in wireline, T1s, PRIs, dedicated fiber. That was the world that I lived in the B2B and enterprise space specifically. And when wireless really started growing, every person started to really have a BlackBerry in their pocket, right? That became the world. That's when kind of that was added to my portfolio, and I was kind of tasked with really pushing wireless growth for some of the telecom carriers. And in that experience, I got exposed to the beginnings of IoT, or kind of M2M, machine to machine, as they used to call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had the pleasure of kind of selling or distributing one of the first variants or variations of mobile forms or digital paperwork. Before it was on kind of one of these guys. Smartphones weren't as prevalent, so we had more specialized equipment that you used to use, and even the infancy of GPS tracking and telematics, right? Where it was really kind of a different concept. And as you can see, obviously, where it's come today, it's so much more accessible. But back in the day, it was really a niche and specialized product. And how can you sell that to someone? How can you pitch that idea? Hey, I'm going to spend at that time an exorbitant amount of money to get the location of my vehicle. What's the benefit, right?
Right.
Where it's a lot easier to really verbalize and vocalize that today, right?
Yeah, and the options we have today is pretty amazing, and it's easy to take it for granted. I mean,
Absolutely.
but you earlier you mentioned dots on a map. That was a big deal. That was the goal. I need a dot on a map. Now there's so much with the telematics, the engine temperature, the oil level, gas level, quick stops, speeding, all that jazz. There's so many cool things that can now be tracked. So one thing I'm really excited about this conversation is, because not only you have a technical background, telecom background, but obviously sales, right? I mean, at the end of the day, most of our listeners, everyone's got bills to pay. Everyone's trying to help businesses solve problems with technology and ideally get paid nicely for it, right? So that's what we all want to do. So on that note, think about listeners that may be new to this conversation of IoT and more specifically fleet tracking and asset tracking. What advice do you have for them? I mean, how can they pivot from having the landline conversations to looking for opportunities for Astreon, for example?
This question kind of comes up with some of our different salespeople or salespeople that I've trained in the past. So I have a background in sales as well as training sales professionals. What I tell all of them is, at the end of the day, product is a product. Anyone can learn the product as long as you have your sales process. down pat. So if you can sell one product, you can sell the other as long as you understand the product, or rather understand the pain points. And you don't need necessarily a technical background yet. That's where Astreon comes in. We're here to help our partners and our dealers and our agents sell the product. So what I like to tell people is, hey, all you got to be able to do is, bring in that lead, warm it up. We'll take care of the rest for you. We'll handle it for you. And from there, it really comes down to your probing questions. And it's the same as, I like to mirror it the same as how you do it on the wireline side is, what are some current pain points? How do you currently manage? And let's talk about in the realm of fleet, because a couple of things that Astreon does. I'll touch on that as well, because knowing's half the battle. The first one is, let's talk about the telematics, the GPS tracking. That's an obvious one. That's a core product at Astreon, right? The Astreon platform is probably one of the largest in terms of volume IoT or fleet management products out there. And just like any other GPS product, you want to find out, how does a company manage their fleet today? So first, do you have a product or do you not have a product currently, a solution? So if they don't have a solution, then very simply, how do you manage maintenance today? How do you manage fuel costs? How do you know the efficiency of your vehicles, arrivals, departures? How do you manage liability? How about safety, right? And there doesn't be a specific answer to these. As long as you're asking the question, it gets the gear spinning and you can uncover that need, right? And from there, it's very simple. Well, you know what? We got a great solution that can help eliminate all those issues, that can help really ease that problem. Let me get one of our partners in. They got a great option for you, right? And then we can probe further and go from there. If they do have
quick question on
yes,
that before you keep going. I like I want to pull on a string. You mentioned that, some prospects may already have the technology. They may already
that's
have
right.
a product. What percentage of the time when your company and your team engages a client, what percentage of the time, 50%, 75%, they already have something and you still can close the deal? How often is that a objection? Is that like a barrier you can't get over? Or, what percentage of the time they have something and you can still work with them? How often does that happen?
So when it comes to on the Astreon side, I probably say about probably 50% of the time someone has something. Now, if you're talking strictly telematics or GPS, it probably 70 or 80% of the time. Why I say Astreon is lower, because we have more niche products and a different variation of products that offer it. But still, someone is going to have something or some variety, right, of a tracking product, which leads you to the second scenario. They have something. Well, if they have something, the questions change slightly. It's still, well, you got something great. What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? Or what are some pain points? Or what do you wish you had? So the wish list question goes a long way, right? Typically, these are questions that get people talking, right? You're going to uncover, what I like to tell some of our salespeople as well is uncover the real objection. Typically on the first ask, the first ones through, you're going to get the knee-jerk reaction. After that, you'll get the real answer. Even if they don't think anything's wrong, say, well, everything's great. Well, anything you wish you had? Well, now that you mention it, I wish this was there. I wish we can handle fuel a bit more efficiently. Or we do tracking, but I wish we can also tie in our dash cams and get when the guys are falling asleep all in one place. That would be kind of cool. Well, have you thought about that? Well, yeah. Okay. Well, you know what? We can solve that problem, right? Even if you don't know from a sales standpoint, if you don't know all the features of the platform, we tell all our guys or all of our partners, just ask the question, find out what it is, and say, you know what? 98 or 99% of the time, we have a solution. The answer is never or seldom no, or never no, really, with Astreon. It's always, okay, great. How do you want to tackle this? Or here's a couple ways we can tackle that problem. Well, as long, over the, I'd say decade plus that I've been here, I haven't seen a scenario where the answer was just flat out no. It was always, we have something, we have a solution, we have a sensor, we have a feature. And if it isn't, that's where the customization comes in, because we still are from our background, the development shop too, right? So we can always, to a certain degree, tweak or develop and then build things like this. Like as an example, we're talking about GPS tracking and telematics. How can we enhance that? We say Astreon is an aggregator, right? We're an aggregator, IoT aggregator. It's really kind of bringing in all these different like products and packaging and saying we're the one-stop shop, right? So as an example to that, we're always looking at new products, whether it's stuff that we just bring in from the market that makes sense, that's a right fit, or there's something that we have to build and develop to really fit into the ecosystem. We have later this year, a PMS or trucking ERP solution software that we're launching that we've developed over the last couple of years, right? That's going to be fully integrated with the telematics software. So now we're going really into specific verticals.
Fantastic.
Right?
So you mentioned some questions you would ask a prospect.
Yes.
Let's talk about customer personas for example. Who are you talking to most often? And does it vary from think about a small fleet to a major enterprise? Who are you normally engaging to ask these questions to?
Yeah. So I guess the main criteria would be clients that have or customers that have a fleet or mobile workforce. And that doesn't necessarily mean vehicles. A mobile workforce can even be non-asset based, non-vehicle based clientele where they have people in the field and they have smart devices, right? I want to manage my people. People that go out and they do a task and they either have to relay this information back to the office or serve some kind of function that's out in the field. That's a typical kind of client. And usually we're talking, obviously this is B2B, we're talking kind of the small, medium to large enterprise, right? So, someone that has probably one vehicle, I wouldn't call that a fleet, but someone that has maybe 10, 20, 30 vehicles, that will qualify. Someone that has 5,000, also a fantastic fit, right? So there's no limits as high as you want to go in that level. It's just going to be what kind of solution are we going to position to that kind of clientele, right? So the enterprise client is going to want something different than the small medium business every time. So that's usually a key. From the vehicle side, typically find any clients that have vehicles, the type of clientele is going to be service industry is a really big one. HVAC, plumbing, pest control, water services, roofing, you name it. They have vehicles, they have to go out, they have to perform a service. I just give some general examples, but white van, we like to call it.
Yep. Yep.
Construction is really a big one. Transportation, obviously, transportation logistics. On the construction, you have, equipment. Because the system's so agnostic, it can fit into any kind of asset. So whether it's a vehicle, a truck, a non-powered asset or a powered asset, a stationary one, doesn't matter. We have the right device for it. Which maybe I can kind of touch on one little differentiator while we're on the topic of it. The cool piece with the Astreon platform to really differentiate, if we're talking on the GPS or on the telematics side of things specifically, most other providers out there, and again, they do a great job, but it's usually a one size fits all type thing, right? They might have one or two, a couple different devices, and it's like the square peg round hole type scenario. With Astreon, we're going to give you the right device for the right solution. So the platform supports, I think as of late, it was over 2,000 different device makes and models that we support in there. So if someone is, I want a vehicle, cool, we have 2 or 3 devices for that. I have a non-powered asset. I have a crane where I want to read DTC codes. I want to get right into the CAN and read data out of that. Cool, we have a device for that, right? A quick story I'll give you is one client or partner customer came in and said, look, I have a client here. They have a couple hundred cranes out in the field, right? And they understand GPS tracking's cool. They have no problem with that. They can go anywhere to get tracking. They already have something. The issue is that they want to read data off the CAN. They want to get some engine data off of it. So they're piloting one other company and I want to recommend you guys. We're going to pilot, get a couple devices, put them in, see how it goes, right? So we put in our devices head to head versus the other, let's call it major provider GPS tracking system. They came in and they got about 4 or 5 data points from the engine. They were like, okay, good news. That's better than 0. We pulled in about 119 off that same device, off that same asset. So that already won the deal, which was great. Did they need that much? Probably not. They probably need about 10 of them that they really wanted, but it just really painted the picture of how far can we take it if you need it, which really boils on to the next question about the scalability and what we find is a gap in the market today. Not a gap, but a typical an issue. Most companies have already been through 2, 3, maybe 4 different solutions, maybe more. Right? Something compels them to change. Maybe a need in the company change, a deficiency in the system, could be service related, whatever the case is. Every number of years, we find them going back out to market. What if we can eliminate that, right? Because that's a lot of cost. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of reinvestment every single time. Rip and replace every time. So the mantra here was, why not put in a solution that's going to grow with you? That's where that example of the multiple engine codes come in, right? You may not need it. You don't need 2,000 devices, but when you do, let me tell you, you're going to be happy. We got you covered, right? We're not going to say no. We're going to say, oh, you need something? Hold on, John. Hold on, Bob. I got 6 other devices going to fit that. Here's the price ranges. Let me know what's the best fit for you guys. I'll show you the pros and cons. So we take that approach, which has been really, really successful. Very successful.
We'll be right back.
Imagine the power of a single cell phone, just one small device destined for more than just calls. I'm talking about cell phones for soldiers. Your retired phone can be a lifeline for veterans and heroes truly in need. Since 2004, this remarkable nonprofit has transformed over 25 million donated phones into more than 450 million free minutes for service members and veterans, reconnecting them with the voices that mean the most. Your donation is kindness in action, reducing electronic waste and empowering those who served. Each device helps fund urgent communication, calling cards, and programs that rebuild connections, restore hope, and unlock new opportunities for veterans. Check the drawer. Your unused phone could make an extraordinary difference. Simply send it in or drop it off at one of the thousands of locations nationwide and give someone the chance to reach loved ones. Visit cellphonesforsoldiers.com today because even a single device can spark life-changing connections for veterans all across the country. That's cellphonesforsoldiers.com. I love tell people all the time, we don't sell fleet tracking. We don't sell we sell business outcomes. We're trying to
That's right.
solve business problems. We're trying to make companies more profitable, more efficient, more effective. And you do that by asking better questions. And
That's right.
guess what? It's like anything. The more you do it, the better you get at it. I tell partners, was there a first time you ever sold a unified communications solution? Well, yeah, of course there was, Chris. How was it? Well, yeah, I was kind of nervous. I didn't like, okay, but are you selling unified communication? Oh, yeah, we sell it all the time. I do it in my sleep. Well, guess what? This conversation is the same way. You just got to
That's
start.
right. That's it.
On that note, so you mentioned some really cool, it's not always about the dots on the map. In fact, it's
Yeah.
rarely about dots on the map anymore. It's so
Yeah.
much more. Artificial intelligence, that's a buzzword in every industry, every supplier I talk to. How do you guys leverage the AI conversation? How is it built in? Maybe give us an example of how a customer is using one of your services that has some type of AI in it.
Right. So we usually look at that as how, like you mentioned, how AI comes in technology and how does AI help solve a problem at the end of the day? It's not about, I need to get AI. Okay, the question has to be why. What are we trying to solve here and how is it going to help you? So AI just becomes another tool, another weapon in our arsenal to really help tackle these situations, right? So today, the way AI is kind of leveraged, the first one, and I think probably the more obvious one, and I say obvious because this is something that's really growing in the industry, AI video telematics, right? Big buzzword, video telematics, AI dash cams, whatever you want to call it, is how can I use AI to really monitor safety? So let me maybe build it up for those of you maybe that aren't too familiar with the dash cam technologies. It all start off with GPS tracking. You have your tracking, my dawn on a map, like I call it, but now I'm getting into fleet management. Let's solve those problems. Phase two is, okay, well, how I get into driver safety. So on the telematics side, you can still do things like aggressive cornering, braking, speeding, hard acceleration, hard cornering, other critical events that you capture by, G sensors, accelerometers, stuff like this, that converts it into a scorecard. But how do I go beyond that? I can see it, I can talk to the guys, I can curtail a lot of activities, but how about accidents? How about something that the driver is doing that the telematics can't catch? That's where the dash cam comes in. And traditionally where dash cams come in is typically for liability, or it's usually more reactive, I should say, as opposed to proactive. You've probably watched those YouTube videos, dash cam videos, guys catching crazy stuff that's going on. But the problem with that is, not the problem, I should say, it really is liability. Something happens, it's done now, it's taken place. Now at least have a video to show who is at fault, right? What if you can prevent that? So the new cameras or the newer cameras in this space, tracking is all part and parcel with it, but now it's live. When I say live, rather, there's a driver-facing camera and a road-facing camera. Now you can use AI to run analytics and to monitor what's happening in the surroundings and prevent these events. So, example, I have 50 vehicles, I have 100 vehicles, I have 1,000 vehicles out there. I suspect my guys are using their phones all the time. They shouldn't be texting. That's a liability. They can get into an accident. There could be loss of life, theirs and others, right? So how can I stop this? How can I protect my people? Well, the dash cam can monitor and say if they're using their cell phone, if they're texting, it can identify this. And what it does is it can either talk to the driver. These are all programmable. Client can decide what they want to turn on or off. They can talk and say, hey, Chris, stop using your phone. Oh, okay, I should put that down. And it can capture that event and send it into the portal. Now, a fleet manager, a safety manager can see this event. It goes into a scorecard, goes into a nice little organized portal. I can say, all right, show me who's the person that's done the most phone use in the last week. Okay, these are my top 10. Let me talk to them about it, right? And it doesn't stop there, just to skim through it, phone use, texting, fatigue, if they're falling asleep, their eyes are closing. If they're smoking, we're talking maybe limo or taxi, they shouldn't be doing that in a vehicle. If it's a shared vehicle, right? And we're talking about driver's hands, maybe they're getting distracted, no driver detected. It's rare we've seen it, but that does happen. Yawning, right? And from the forward camera, you can monitor things like pedestrian collision, close proximity, tailgating. Are they about to get into an accident? Things like this. So the list goes on and on, which is really, really cool, right? Seatbelts, that's another one, right?
Yeah. No, I've even heard of companies, because obviously a lot of companies that don't have that technology, the drivers are generally pretty resistant, right? Because like Big
Absolutely.
Brother's watching me and they turn it into the gamification where they're like, hey, guess what? Every month, whoever's the top three gets $100 Amazon gift card. I mean, they're starting to reward the behavior and maybe even making it a part of their bonus structure, and And it's like, hey, we're not trying to whack and track you, but we will reward good behavior.
That's
But
right.
yeah, hey, we're a business. We have investors. We can't have people out being reckless. So yeah, we got to monitor this. And guess what? If you ain't the problem, you ain't got nothing to worry about.
And
How
it's never
about this?
personal either, right? And it's never personal. It's
It's not
always
personal.
about,
Yes.
like in the platform right now, we do that. We'll kind of show, the top 10 or the worst 10 type thing. But a lot of times also driver exoneration is a big piece, right? The rewarding, I think it's a great way, gamifying it. That's hugely successful. The second piece also is the driver exoneration, which is you're not at fault. We're protecting you as well. And
Right.
more often than not, I'll tell you, the system hasn't been to punish or even reward. It's really been to protect. I probably say, from what I've seen, yes, there's obviously some unsafe habits and whatnot, but I probably say from what I've seen, 60, 70% of the time, in some way it has been tied to the driver's safety and protecting the driver, either exonerating them or preventing them from getting into a situation that they otherwise weren't aware that they were building up that habit.
That's right. That's right. Now, I've definitely heard cases like, here, even in Georgia, one of the big utility companies, the big bucket trucks, people historically would try to pull in front of them and back up at a red light. So they looks
Oh
like they
yeah.
got rear-ended so they can sue this big company. Well, if it's on camera, guess what? That person's getting the ticket for a false accident report.
It makes a hilarious YouTube video.
It really does. It's like, yeah, they thought they were going to get a big payday. Well, guess what? They're probably going to jail now. Another use case I heard around AI was even you mentioned shared vehicles, right? Facial
Yeah.
recognition, because if you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
one vehicle, and there's three different drivers because maybe three different shifts, and that vehicle gets in an accident that day, and sometimes like, well, who was, three people were driving it. We didn't notice a dent in the quarter panel until a couple of days later. You can go back and see who was driving, right? Or maybe they're not even
100%.
an authorized user. Have you seen cases where maybe there's only three people who should be driving the vehicle. Fourth person gets in, the AI can even like disable the starter. It won't even start. Have you seen anything like that?
So you got to be careful with that. So
Yeah.
I'll answer this in a couple ways. So first, on that note about the starter and stuff. Well, first, let me go back to the driver identification and
Yeah.
and that'll
Sure.
lead
Yeah.
us into that topic. So first, on the driver ID side, you're absolutely right. There's a couple ways we can tackle that nowadays with facial recognition. Even the cameras can do it. Facial rec, driver ID. So again, three people share. So it doesn't have to necessarily be just unauthorized use. These are the three people that are driving. Who did most of the unsafe driving habit? Maybe it was Bob. Bob did 90% of it. I'm not going to yell at Jim and Steve about it. Bob, look, I know you all drove, but I can see you did 90% of the unsafe driving habit. It's associated to you. Come on, dude. What's going on, right? So that's one aspect. There are a couple ways we can actually tackle that. You mentioned about this damage wasn't there. Typically, when we talk about this, that's definitely something you can catch. But we talk about aggregator of solutions. We've been talking about telematics a lot. We do have other products that tie into the fleet that can help complement that or enhance it further. So obviously telematics, dash cams, mobile forms is another piece that we work on, as well as digital inspections. We have a great product or tool which is all about kind of custom inspections, very graphical, where it keeps that history. So you know that Bob inspected it, he saw that there was no deficiency. The next guy came in, he inspected it, and there was a deficiency. Third guy comes in where I can see that actually this is a deficiency that's continued on since yesterday and it wasn't remedied, right? So there are other methods. Then it's photo capture, all kinds of cool stuff with that as well. But absolutely, kind of associating and understanding which driver did what is one thing. You talk about an authorized driver. The camera's there, so we'll capture it. It won't know who it was. So we'll say, hey, here's this other event. It's not Bob, Jim, or John. Who is this guy, right? Obviously, he's the one that's fault type thing, right? Then you talked about a little bit about, engine disable or how do we do that stuff. So are these things possible? Yes, they are. Do we do them nowadays? Not so much in the industry. And there's a couple reasons why. Anything's possible. We've done it in the past many, many times. But the issue comes down to is risk, right?
Yeah.
The idea sounds nice. Hey, I'll disable it. But really when it comes down to emergency situations, I need to be able to drive an emergency and now the engine shut off or I can't start it. That becomes problematic. So the give and take, the cost benefit isn't there. There's more cost than benefit. So we don't do it as much, right?
Got it. Got it.
And some states don't actually want it. It's not allowed.
That
Some
makes
states,
sense.
some countries, you're not allowed to put it in. Some areas, at least even if it is kind of allowed, we want to make sure that people are aware of the inherent risk of that. But we have
Unintended
some clients, yeah,
consequences, right? Unintended consequences. Sounds really good, but yeah, it's not such a
it
great
is.
idea if an emergency
Instead,
happens and
yeah,
you need someone to drive you to the hospital and you're
and it happens.
knocked out.
Instead, what we look at is we've looked at kind of a middle ground. So we've done some for maybe some larger fleets, even some in the ambulatory space, where it's more of the vehicle goes into like a limp mode, let's call it, right? So it hinders it. It's not dead. It's not really disabled. It's kind of in a limp mode, so you can't really operate it as effectively as called, like it slows it down. Again, very niche. We can do that if needed and if it's really a specific requirement. So
Right, right. And of course, an alert can be sent to dispatcher, to the manager,
yeah,
whomever, to say, hey, by
100%,
the way, truck 129 has got a driver we don't recognize. You might want to look into that. Yeah.
100%.
When you look at your last, let's just your last dozen or so nice deals you guys have closed, was there a common trend on what kind of business problems you were solving, or anything unique you could share with us from a story perspective of what's selling, what's moving the
Yeah.
needle?
And the best way I can answer that is there was always a different feature, different reason, but the common one was always there was a gap in what they currently had or what they needed, or they wanted something to really be more specific to their requirements, right? So I'll kind of look at some example. One example of a couple ones that I can think of was company already had a product, already had a major GPS tracking platform, and on the reporting side, they needed something more. Reporting wasn't there. There wasn't enough custom reporting that they required. So they wanted to know something very specific of specific trips or runs, let's call them, right? So between a geofence and another geofence. So a geofence being, I'm just putting a point of interest. I'm like virtually drawing it on my map. This is one fence. This is one fence. These are maybe clients or yards or whatnot, right? And all they cared about was, I really just want to know from this point A and point B, this specific one, I want to track the efficiency of that. I want that to go in a specific report and be able to compare. Currently with the other providers, that was a more difficult thing to do. You can still pull up a report, but it took so much time to go through a generic one. Or they charged for a custom report. We're talking 5, 10 grand they were charging just to build a report for them. We built that report in about 10 minutes on the spot because of the system gives a report building tool in there, which takes the next level. $0. Like it was easy, but just the ease of it, how we're able to address the requirement and how simple it was to get it done. No headaches, no back and forth. We got you. We did that. So that was one big example that sticks with me. Another one was on the dash cam side, where our approach on dash cams is a little bit different, right? Nowadays, it's all about cloud-based dash cams or connected dash cams, and they all work very similarly, right? They connect something. Typically, they're plug-and-play style dash cams, and they're meant to just trigger an event when it happens. And is limited storage on the camera itself. So they're mostly focused on events as opposed to a dash cam being a dash cam. Our approach is number one, if you're putting in a dash cam, this is tied to liability and safety. It has to be tamper-proof, first of all, and it has to act as a dash cam first. So what ours do is we went with a hardwired. So they had a solution where it kept either getting disconnected or they weren't capturing enough non-event situations. A guy pulled up in front of an area a couple of days ago. Nothing happened with his vehicle. They captured something that affected us or could have affected someone, a client that we were interacting with. Days later, I think I got that on video. It wasn't there, right? It wasn't an event. Or, we've had situations where, someone comes in to tamper with the vehicle, tamper with the camera. It was easier to unplug and disconnect it. Or a critical event, a catastrophic accident happened and the thing just got disconnected and they lost all the data. Well, for that scenario, we went with a hardwired solution. So hardwired cameras. Yes, there's some installation required. We have plug and play as well, obviously, but hardwire is the way to go. No tampering. No one's going to pull anything. And with expanded local storage. That was a key differentiator. You can put multiple SD cards in this to really expand the local storage. So it does act like a camera. So if something catastrophic happens, it doesn't matter if the camera didn't have a chance to upload it. We captured it on the black box. It's there, right? So that was a big win. That was a construction client. Maybe had about 400 or 500 vehicles and they had the solutions, but this really turned it around. It really addressed those little pain points. And the last one I can think of is really more on the, customization or development of the existing stuff, right? So one of our products is a mobile tracker. We talk about vehicles a lot. One of them is a mobile product. No asset required, app-based, no hardware. The full platform, you load it up. Well, basically, it reports into the same platform, but it's an app on your phone. All the same tracking. It also does check-in, check-out, all kinds of stuff. Well, we further tweak that and customize it to use it. One, it could have been for employee management, check-in, check-out. Number two, we use it for a lone worker situation where they have to check in every half an hour with some notification, all the way up to, I want to know how many hours they spend in the office or how many hours they spend at a job site, or I want to put custom statuses to say this is business mileage versus personal mileage so they can submit that expense. So, on that mobile product, lots of great wins in the last probably 6 to 12 months.
That's interesting. I was actually going to ask you, tell me about some of your solutions that aren't vehicle related. That's a really cool one. But I even think about, I heard a story a year or so ago Actually, I didn't hear the story. I was a part of the story. Got a phone call. It was a Friday before Labor Day. So the Friday before a 3-day weekend. And that's when things happen, right? That's when
Absolutely.
emergencies happen.
Every
Get a
time.
frantic phone call from a partner in California. He's like, "Hey, we need asset tracking solution like ASAP." I'm like, "Dude, can we do this next Tuesday? I'm getting ready to go out of town." No, my customer, the CEO, is probably going to get fired by the board if he doesn't have an answer. We're like, "Well, God, what happened?" Well, apparently there was an aviation company, and they were shipping a bunch of aviation parts and motors to a client somewhere in the country, and the company only had, like, I don't know, 5 semi truck 18-wheeler delivery vehicles, but they need 7. Okay. Well, so they outsourced and hired a transportation company, just contracted a transportation company to fill up the last 2 trucks. Well, of the 7 trucks that left the factory, only 6 showed up at the customer. And one of the trucks it's like $1 million worth of avionic equipment. And I'm like, well, didn't they have fleet tracking? Well, yeah, on their trucks they did, but the 2 other trucks they didn't.
They
And the
got
2
nothing.
drivers didn't even know each other. They were like, they were subcontractors. And so, long story short, they're like, "Hey, we don't want to track the trucks per se, but we need to track our cargo, the pallets. We just need to track what we're putting in the trucks. We don't care where the truck goes. I just care
Yeah.
where my stuff is." So, is there a story like that you've seen where it's not a mobile device and it's not even a vehicle, but it could be, going back to, we mentioned trailers, a lot of these long haul companies that do have maybe contracted drivers, they drop these trailers off at these different trailer lots at these truck stops, right? And they lose their trailers. That's an expensive trailer. Is
Oh yeah.
anything else like that? Heavy equipment? I mean, anything like that you see?
Yeah, couple scenarios or stories I can share with that. So first, you mentioned about they contracted out to a third party, another trucking company. It's none of theirs. We have clients today that do that, where they have their own assets, and then whether it's for a limited period or seasonal or permanently, they have about one of them I'm thinking of specifically. They have about 50, let's call them like agents or contracted drivers that are outsourced. They don't work for the company. They go to a third party, and at any point, there's about 50 of them out in the field. They have hundreds of vehicles, but 50, for whatever reason, they got to do that seasonality. It goes up, it goes down. They're not our vehicles, they're not our trucks, they're not our trailers, but I still want to track what they're doing, where our stuff's going. So the mobile tracker came into play because it's more generic. It's easy enough to say, "Hey, if you're working for us," they put in a process. You download this app, we'll give you a login, and boom, off you go. Within a few minutes, they're up and running, and now they're tracking. It becomes a part of their contract. So that's one method to do that, where you want to do something like you mentioned today. Yesterday, I needed this tracking. I can't even get them hardware yet. I just want to have a solution. That's what really addresses that. The second option has been our small portable trackers. And we've used this for expensive cargo. I've put it in my luggage. I can see when it's coming out of the airplane and the airport, where it's a small little device, battery powered, because it has to get power somehow. But it's one of the, if not the smallest one in the world today from form factor. Maybe it's about an inch by an inch and a half or 2 inches, maybe half an inch thick or something. Charge it up, depending on the reporting interval, last maybe a week, 2 weeks. I mean, you can configure that, and you can drop it into something, and it'll track. It goes based on motion as well. So if it's stationary and conserve its battery, and if it starts moving, you can see where it's dropped off, and you can always recover that. So my shipment gets to the destination, you can recover it and send that unit back. Or depending on the cost of the shipment, who cares, right? Maybe
Right.
it's a drop in the bucket if it's really that important. The last one is, you talked about they drop off their trailers. So it's not their power units, not their trucks, but they got trailers, right? Trailer tracking comes in. So the traditional method is you put a tracker, or we have, solar ones, battery ones, or wired ones you can put in. But if you're really talking about security, we have covert ones, give away all of the secrets and all that kind of good stuff. But suffice it to say that it's installed or it's put in a way where it becomes kind of OEM to the trailer. So to anyone, even to the trained eye, there's nothing there. There is nothing
Nice.
on this trailer. There's nothing on top. There's nothing on the inside. There's nothing that is visible that I can see, but that trailer is tracked.
Yeah.
Right? Anytime it's hooked up, anytime it gets dropped off, there's, let's call this battery, there's stuff in there as well. When it's hooked up, it goes to power, but it's the ultra covert methodology for a dry van, a reefer, a flatbed, whatever, where you can put this for trailers that are shared. You can drop them around so you can get your, asset management. Hey, I want to see where my trailers are sitting, but also someone's going to pull it. You have full visibility into it.
Thinking back through the sales cycle and all the different kind of customers we've talked about, most companies that have a large fleet probably have a fleet manager. They probably have a mechanic crew. They probably have their own mechanic shop. Are there times where customers go, "Hey, look, we have 100 vehicles across all 50 states. and they're not centrally located, and my driver is not going to install this stuff. I mean, do you guys do professional services? I'm sure there's
Yeah,
additional fees built into the
of course.
contract, whatnot. So professional services go on site and install these things.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
We give the client, the customer, the end customer, the option, or depending on whoever the agent's going to be that's providing that solution to them. We like to provide the client what they want, right? So if it's, hey, I want you guys to do everything, I want you to send someone to install this, no problem. We'll quote that and we'll get one of our our partner installation network to do that. Or it could just be, you know what, I'm going to do it myself. Well, this is easy enough, or it's a plug and play device. We have plug and play options too, which is simple. I want to do it myself, or you know what, I'm getting a complex install device, but we got a mechanic that can do this. We have our own guys that can do it. No problem. We'll give you the installation guide. We'll give you the wiring guides.
Yep.
Do it yourself, right? We'll guide you if you need some assistance. We can say, hey, make sure to do it this way. So whatever works for the client, we can do that, right? What I kind of want to take the opportunity to add as well, we touched on a little bit, maybe talk about, you mentioned outside of just the tracking, some of the different products. The tracking, obviously the Astreon platform is the big one. There's a lot that goes in there. We're talking tracking, dash cams, but also maintenance is another big piece, right?
Yeah.
Scheduling maintenance, automating maintenance, putting cost, itemization. You can scan invoices and put them in there. Kind of see your total cost per mile, total cost per engine hour that I've run. So it takes you a little bit beyond just scheduling a maintenance. We also do integrate with other systems. Like there's like one Fleetio or Fleet.io. That's another big platform people use on the maintenance side. We also integrate that. So we play nice, which is great. I'm trying to talk, driver scorecarding, customizations on the scorecard side. We can also customize that fully. They can customize their scorecard if they need to. We talked about the inspection one. So that's another big product, the digital inspections and forms. What I think is cool about that, what I want to be clear about this one is people hear that a lot, inspections, pre-trip inspections, and it gets tied into ELDs. ELD or logbooks, it's a big one in the transportation industry. I know we've been talking a lot about transport. That is just one component, one vertical. But while we're on the topic, ELDs is kind of a mandated requirement for those that don't know in the trucking industry. Truckers have to track their hours, right? They have to work within a certain cycle to make sure they don't get fatigued and crash into someone. That's kind of the idea. So because it's mandated, well, we have certified ELDs by FMCSA DOT, of course. So since the mandate first came out, which is great. So people always conflate pre-trips with that because one of the components of that is you have a little schedule one or a pre-trip inspection. The inspection application we're talking about is, again, it's very horizontal. It's agnostic, where it takes the inspection and goes fully custom. So mixed fleets. I have a machinery, I have a trailer, I have a truck, I have a pickup. Cool. There'll be an inspection for each one, and the inspection form will change and adapt based on the asset. And it's fully graphical, which is the best part about it. It's not just black and white writing. You'll see an actual image of your asset, which I think is super cool, especially for the end user, because a lot of part of it isn't just the functionality, it's the usability and the friendliness of the application. Kind of what I call people wanting to use it, right? The more your end users want to use it and they like it, the more successful you're going to be with that deployment, right? The adoption is going to be more successful, which I think is key. So this application, I think it's a very cool product because how graphical it is and because how customized it is. So you can say inspect these points, but also make sure that you have your PPE in the equipment in the vehicle. You have your caution triangles. Do you have this piece of equipment in there? All this stuff can be tied in, and that also ties into maintenance. Well, it ties in, it's a full workflow as opposed to just inspections, ties into work orders, task assignment. You can send it now out to your mechanic, or they get it on their smartphone with the app. They can complete the task, capture everything, goes right back in the system, where the central fleet manager can say, you know what, forget about just, I want to see all maintenance that I do. What's the health of my fleet in a percentage? Dilute this or summarize this into one dashboard where I can see, we're at 75% health. Why? Is that a metric we want to go with? Maybe maybe we want to be at 80%. Okay, let's look at what's contributing to this. So and this once again is just an app. There's no hardware required for this application. Just a smartphone app, takes care of everything, and it's pretty cool. And then from there, we like to, how do these all relate? Mobile workforce, right? You have vehicles in the field, you have assets, you have people in the field. How do I keep track of this? How do I manage them? Well, my people also do some paperwork. They do forms, they do expense things, they do timesheets, work orders, whatever kind of paperwork that might be that they convey back to the office. Well, I want to digitize that. We got you covered there. Well, they also have to maybe inspect some stuff. Maybe we're a rental company. Maybe it's for safety, whatnot. Well, there you go. We have your inspections covered. It all comes back. And if they need connectivity as well, we can also provide that. We're talking like data connectivity for those that just require this. But ultimately, it's the full turnkey solution if they need it. And I think that's where Astreon really positions itself. The next piece we talked in our pre-chat a little bit, we're talking about sales. And that's really something that we bring to the table as well. We talked about, we're here to help our partners. We're not just here to say, here's a product. We're about people at the end of the day. So we want to help everyone be successful. We want clients to get the right solution and solve their problems. But we also want to help you guys, right? Help all of the agents out there. That's why I say, hey, if you can just probe them a little bit, see if there's a good opportunity, we'll help you with that. We'll show you how to do it. We'll jump on the call. We're very hands-on when it comes to these things. You're talking about where I started, so changing gears a little bit. I always said technology, but also I came from a background of sales. I always loved it. I love being in front of people. As a people person, I love the excitement of it. I love solving problems. It's a good feeling to kind of come in and say, you know what, Mike, you know what, Astreon, you guys really solved this issue. We love it. That's a great feeling to have. But also knowing how to sell too, knowing how to position it. We talked before, if you've ever watched, The Boiler Room, that old kind of sales, or Glengarry Glen
Yeah.
Ross, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I always admired that. I thought it was great. Not what they did in the movie, but kind of, the energy of the sale,
The hustle.
right?
Yeah.
The hustle,
grind.
the grind. That's what I did. And I did that for a couple of years at one point, actually. A little bit similar to that, not quite that. It was, selling summits to Fortune 500 companies, like these technology events and whatnot. And that was a tough gig, let me tell you. Call Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 on the phone, get a hold of their C-suite and say, hey, look, I got this event. You're going to come down. You're going to buy the flight. You're going to get the hotel, and you're going to listen to some people talk. How do you show value in that, right? Like, obviously you can see there's some value, but how do you encourage someone or really excite them to do that, right? So it really taught me a lot.
Yeah.
That was a grind, let me tell you.
This has been a great conversation. And I appreciate it. And I think it definitely, we covered a lot, different technologies, hot points, benefits, problem solving, sales. Is there anything we left out? Anything else you want to cover?
Yeah, we're talking about, what brought me here, right? What brought me to kind of Astreon and, background telecom software and then over a decade here at Astreon. But it wasn't without its trials and tribulations, obviously, challenges like everyone, all our listeners have their challenges they deal with. And the question's always is what keeps you going, right? And it was a few years back, actually, I am a cancer survivor.
Awesome.
About 2 years ago, I was diagnosed, and it was an advanced stage 3 cancer. And it really makes you kind of reprioritize and rethink what you're doing almost, kind of look at life a different way. I am cancer free, beat the
Fantastic.
crap out of it.
Yeah. Awesome.
I'm still here, not going anywhere. My beard grew back, not so much up here, but some of it eventually came back. But what I found, even after all that, I'm still here. I'm still doing what I'm doing. And that was a great indication to me that showed a testament to that this is the right industry for me. And I would always invite anyone to really get into this industry, whether it's sales or it's just sales in tech or tech itself. It's always changing. It's always exciting. It's very rewarding, and it's never a dull moment, right? So I've been doing it probably over 20 years now, and I'm looking forward to another 20, 30 years continue. And I'm hoping that I can impart some of the knowledge, some of the excitement, some of the great tools and stuff we have to others to really kind of carry on the torch, right?
Yeah.
One quote that comes to mind is it's by life is about making an impact, not making an income. And we try to live by that every day we can.
That's
Income's
right.
important.
I love that.
That's great, but it all comes. If you have the right mentality, right approach, everything's going to come.
That's right. Right. Yeah, focus more on the outcome and not the income. Yeah, I
That's
love
it,
that.
right?
That's fantastic. Well, man, I've really enjoyed our conversation. Thanks so much. Please check the show notes if you're listening out there and you're driving, maybe you're busy. And the show notes, I'll have a link how to get a hold of Michael and Astreon. Thanks for those last words, Michael. I think that is critical. Focus on the outcome and not the income. Solving problems it feels good. We make a living helping others make a living. I say that a lot because
That's right.
it sounds noble almost. I mean, if we're doing our job right, we're helping people, save money, maybe save lives, and
Absolutely.
we're compensated for that. It seems like a pretty good deal, right? So
Win-win, right? And
it
these
is a
are,
win-win. Thanks
mission
for your time
critical.
today, man. I'm glad we were able to get this together. Thanks for jumping on and having this conversation.
My pleasure, Chris. Thanks for having me, and all the best. And hope you're looking forward to chatting in the future. And all the best to all their listeners out there. Anything you guys need, obviously, at Astreon can help. Please reach out.
You bet. You bet. Well, there you go, folks. Another episode in the books. As always, if you heard something that made you think of a customer, make you think of a colleague, please share this episode with them. And again, always check the show notes. There's usually some links in there, more on the topic. And also check out the wirelessway.net, the website for the show. There's a contact us button. If you have an idea for a guest, you'd like to be a guest, or just have some feedback, love to hear from you. And until next time, we'll see you on the Wireless Way. Every 2 seconds, someone in the U.S. needs blood for surgeries, cancer treatment, chronic illness, and traumatic injuries. Yet, only 3% of eligible Americans donate each year, leaving hospitals struggling to keep enough blood on the shelves. One blood donation can save up to 3 lives. With your help, we can make sure life-saving blood is ready before it's needed. If you're healthy and able, please roll up a sleeve and donate. Visit redcrossblood.org or call 1-800-RED-CROSS to find a drive or donation center near you. Donate blood saves lives. It's easy, safe, and one of the most generous things you can do.